Hello and welcome to my impressions video for Anthem. Now, before I begin, I'll be honest, I'm really in two minds of whether I was even whether I should even bother doing this video. It is weeks past relevant and weeks past me caring about this game. So that'll probably give you an indication of where this video is going to go. So being perfectly upfront, Anthem is a huge disappointment. It's a mediocre game from a studio that has a huge pedigree and a large amount of history. And overall, it's just a mess that it has gotten worse since I stopped playing. So I got it when it came out in early March, and you know what? For the first part, I actually enjoyed it. The opening mission is okay. It's imaginative. It paints a picture. It starts setting the scene for the world. You are in kind of a Avatar-style jungle world, which is home to dangerous wildlife and various factions. It was previously inhabited by this mysterious race called the Shapers, who disappeared because they try to harness the Anthem of creation, the supernatural force that can spit out anything you see fit if you can manage to control it, and it's basically magic beyond anyone's control. The early parts of the game set up this kind of conflict where you are the freelancers, you're kind of like mercenaries for hire on the frontier, going out and doing dangerous jobs no one else will. It puts other factions in the mix, like the Sentinels, who are essentially kind of like this more militaristic police force style faction that look after the towns and cities scattered throughout. It paints pictures of distant capital cities. You're very much on the frontier in the wasteland. It talks about a faction called the Dominion, who are essentially Sith, the Sith Empire, or fucking Nazis. They seem to be very, very kind of militaristic and serious, and they're led by a mysterious Thanos rip-off called oh God, what's it called? The Monitor. As I say, sorry, it's been a few weeks since I've played this, and you know, there's this huge event called the Heart of Rage where there's something called a cataclysm set off because of something to do with the shape of magic, the Anthem of creation. It all goes wrong. The freelancers are torn apart as an organization, and the game starts a proper where you're kind of making ends meet as a freelancer, trying to get any job you can, and you control mechanical robot suits that are very much like Iron Man, called javelins, and that's pretty much the game. It's a Destiny style loot shooter, Diablo style. They're probably more fair to say Diablo style loot shooter. Obviously Diablo's not a shooter, but it's that kind of same format. You have your home base in Fort Tarsus, and you then go out into the frontier in your suit and do missions, and it's a third person action game that has mediocre gunplay, mixing in with what seems to be an extension of the powers system seen in Mass Effect, including the combo system, which is far more important here, but not particularly well explained. And off you go to do various missions for the members of the fort. And it starts off okay, it starts off fun, it's exciting, I've got a cool Iron Man suit, I'm flying around, there's 4 Iron Man suits to choose from. There's the Ranger, who is effectively Iron Man. He's the kind of soldier class from Mass Effect. He makes good use of weapons, he has a lot of offensive abilities. His ultimate ability is basically a missile barrage, a bit like War Machine from the Marvel movies. And he's cool, he's fine, he's kind of bread and butter, he's kind of vanilla, he gets the job done. You got the Colossus, who's a big, beefy guy, kind of like the Titans from Titanfall. In fact, I painted mine a bit like BT from Titanfall 2, and I was really happy with that. And they have access to some really heavy weapons like grenade launchers, which are fucking broken in how useless they are, and autocannons, which are giant chain guns, and I don't know how effective they are, but they're a lot of fun to use. You've got the Storm, who's essentially the mage. They wear long capes, can hover and fly through the battle and cast spells down on their enemies. They're really fun because they make use of the abilities far more than the guns, and that's where the game is slightly better. And then you've got the Interceptor, which I haven't really played much. I played a little bit in the alpha and the beta, which I had some impressions up a few months ago, and they were fun. They're the melee-based class. They're really lightly armoured but fast, can triple dash and get in and out of danger using melee attacks. And I haven't played them, but there's some footage probably in this video because I managed to get some off my partner. She was playing the Interceptor, and she seemed to have as much fun as you possibly can in this game with that class. So, the game's kind of split up into two sections. You've got the open world. I say open. You've got the third-person action gameplay, which is either on a mission or in free roam. The missions range from bad to mediocre. They are short, uninspiring trips out to fly to a point, defend it from magically spawning enemies, and then just as the combat's getting into full swing, it's over and you're done, and you're back to town. You've got free roam, bit like Destiny's Patrol, where you can go out into the frontier and go anywhere you like and just do whatever. There's random world events spawning. And the problems with this one is that, unlike Destiny, which dynamically matches you up with people on the fly and has you fighting in groups of 6 or 7 or 8 at certain times with easy to understand events happening with waypoints on a map to direct you, Anthem very much just puts you in a 4-man instance, and if it's full of strangers, well then it's full and you can't do shit about it. I've had instances where I was playing and a friend would come online and is like, oh hey, I'll come free roam with you. No, he can't, because I've got 3 strangers in with me. We're not linked together, we're not doing anything together, we're not coordinating. So I had to quit back to town, group up with my friend, go back out into free roam with him. And that's not a huge hassle, but on paper it's more hassle than it should be, but it's not a huge hassle. But the goddamn load screens, you're talking upwards of a minute or more, and you're sitting through multiple ones at any given moment throughout this game, and that permeates every aspect of this game, whether you're doing free roam, whether you're doing missions, whether you're just going about the town or in between. There's loading screens, and there are all the loading screens are static pictures with text like tooltip text, nothing too exciting, and they last ages, and they've only got 3 or 4 different images and tips. There's a handful of tips and a few images to have these pass by. Destiny is criticised for its load times, but at least it gives you your ship and your customization. You can see your friend's ship. Warframe, for that matter, does something similar, and it's a little touch. It's kind of something to pass the border while you are waiting for these games to load. But no, Anthem just gives you the most boring thing you could and says make do. And so I'm really negative on Anthem. And I've got to say that I haven't played it for 3 weeks now. I got to about level 20, maybe 22. The level cap is 30. Finished the main story. Did not complete all the side quests. And then I was done. Did the main story. Did all the strongholds, which are like the dungeons, the strikes in this game. I would say, well, one of them was in the beta, where you're fighting giant bugs. That's pretty good for what it is. It's fun, although it bugged out on me. And that's going to be a common theme in everything I talk about, bugs. Because Anthem, not only is Anthem a mediocre game, it is buggy and broken, and it has a laundry list of bullshit associated with it. But the strongholds are the one against the bugs, the one against the Scar, who are humanoid bugs. They're kind of like a faction in the game, somewhat reminiscent of the Fallen from Destiny, but not really. Kind of like a Diet Coke version of the Fallen, I think I would describe them as. And the Temple of Scar I found to be fucking shit. It was boring. It was uninspired. That was the last one I did actually, and I was like, oh well, at least I'll crack it out because they've been okay up until now. No, it was bullshit. I wasted my time. I was angry when I finished. I was like, god damn, it couldn't even make 3 for 3. There's only 3 strongholds in the game. Couldn't even make all of them interesting. And I mean the other one is the Heart of Rage, which, spoiler alert, but who gives a shit, because I'm not going to recommend you play this game, even though this is just an impressions video rather than a full review. I was going to do a full review for this game. I even had a few friends lined up, and I thought, let's not fucking bother. It's not worth the time it takes to talk about it and the time it takes to edit it and put it up, and especially because we're this late, so I just want a bit of a rant about it. But either way, the last stronghold is just the last mission of the campaign, the Heart of Rage. And it's okay. It's fine. It's not too bad. Yeah, so I would say Anthem is a mediocre to good game when it works, but it's bogged down by technical issues. So I mentioned long load times, bugs. Bugs affect everything in this game. I got disconnected multiple times. Both me and my girlfriend have lost progress during missions because of disconnects. She had the unfortunate luck to get disconnected early in the game, halfway through a mission, so I had to come back out and we had to start it again because she could not get back into it. I had the even worse luck. One of the longest missions in the game has you going through a series of trials in a kind of flashback montage type thing. And we literally got through the whole mission on hard, which was fucking an arduous grind. And soon as the last cutscene triggered, boom, I got kicked out. My girlfriend sits through the whole thing. It's like, are you not seeing this cutscene? It's pretty good. Things are actually happening with the plot now, and it's actually coming together a little bit more. And I was like, no, I'm sitting on the title screen. Try to log in, but like there is I should say there is a kind of rejoin mechanic. But by the time I'd loaded back into their endless fucking load screens, their party had finished and disbanded, so there was nothing to rejoin. So we had to do it again, and it's not the most interesting of missions the second time through, really. Just stuff like that. And then you've got the loot situation, which I can't comment on it personally, but I suppose my experience with the loot system was originally when the game came out, the loot system was bullshit. You would get shotguns with 10% bonus damage to sniper rifles, and I'd be like, what good is that? Not only do I not have a sniper rifle I can use at this current time with this shotgun, but I don't want to use a sniper rifle, so what good is that? But Bioware did respond and tighten the loot pool up so that wouldn't happen. But then there's been endless fucking talk and bullshit online about the loot system doesn't work. It doesn't drop enough. You don't get powered up. It's all luck. It's astronomical odds to get what you need. It doesn't get handed out. There's no reward for playing this game. And to make matters worse, I mean, the whole joke about this thing is, at least on 2 occasions that I'm aware of, Bioware patched the game to fix bugs, ended up doing something to the loot system which meant that top-end gear, legendaries and masterworks that were useful would drop more frequently. The player base loved it because they were finally getting something for their time, and Bioware then came out and said, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that, and rolled it back. And that happened twice. The first time was not met with the best response. The second time seemed to be met with utter fucking disdain. And everything about this game has just been badly managed, from like lack of communication since it came out. The Bioware, it almost feels like we've been duped a little bit, because I'm not the best person to really go on about this probably, but I'll throw my 2 pence in. Why the fuck not? Beforehand, Bioware seemed to be very, very responsive. Like, hey guys, it's going to be good. We're all in this together. There's going to be problems, but we'll get through them together. We heard your criticisms. The town is just single player, and you want to play a social space to hang out with your buddies. We've built a launch bay where you can do that. We turned that around in a week, and it's fine. Look, we're going to respond to feedback. As soon as the game came out, nothing. Like shit all communication that actually means anything, and it just feels like Anthem is a loot shooter, a schluter that has not learned from any other game in this genre in the last 10 years. They even had one of the lead designers for Reaper of Souls, Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, come in on Reddit and basically tell them, look guys, here's what you've done wrong. It's what vanilla Diablo 3 did, and this is what we did to fix it. And everybody was like, this fucking makes sense, this rings true, because Reaper of Souls made Diablo 3 from something that had similar issues, good core gameplay but weak ass metagame, to something that I still play fairly regularly. I still play it on the Switch. It's fucking amazing, that game. It's endlessly rewarding. There's always something to go for, to grind for, to work towards. And Anthem isn't persistent like Destiny, so they could have gone for it. pitches itself far more like that Diablo. You got a town, you're in a fixed party, you go and do set things. You come back to town, offload your bags, whereas Destiny's a bit more kind of open world, free roam, and you go back to the tower to do weekly and daily things, but beyond that you're out and about on patrol. I mean, and that's another thing. Like, the world in Anthem is boring because you can fly over it, which is the big fucking USP of this game. You're Iron Man. Because you're flying over this world, it doesn't mean anything to you. You're never familiar with it. There's no landmarks. There's no sense of geometry or learning the map or anything like that. You don't become intimate with it like you do with like a Grand Theft Auto map, or a Destiny map for that matter. And even though it feels big at first, you realise it's not that big because you are flying over it. It's got the Warcraft post-Burning Crusade problem in that everyone flies over everything, so nobody spends any time in the actual zones. And it equates to Destiny 2 shipping with only something like the European Dead Zone or maybe 2 zones to patrol around. I mean, imagine that shit. It's just not that big. And when you're in free roam, to make exacerbate things, I touched on it before, where saying you're in a party of 4 people, you can't really coordinate unless you're speaking to each other, which, nobody speaks to strangers on the internet these days, and even when you try to, it's not often worth your fucking time. Some fucking person rapping into the mic, or you can hear their family arguing in the background, or their dog panting in the mic or something. You can't even coordinate on a loose basis because it doesn't tell you where anything's happening. I could be fighting a world boss on one side of the map, and the guy on the other side of the map doesn't have a clue that's happening. So not only do you not know where world events are happening unless you're in the close proximity, you can't tell anybody else about them without getting on the mic to them. And you're going to get on the mic to them if you're in a party with them. And oh my god, this game does everything it can. At its core, I had some fun with it, but it does everything it can to make you not want to play it. It's death by 1,000 cuts, Anthem. There's nothing really about it that's bad, other than the technical state. But none of it is as good as it should be, or as good as it needs to be, or as broad as it needs to be, or as big as it needs to be. It's just fucking... I don't know. Honestly, if Bioware can turn this around, Taken King style, fair play. I haven't played this for 3 weeks, but I have said to my girlfriend, let's keep it, put it on the shelf, give it a year. We will come back to it in a year and see where it's at. So I haven't got rid of it, I haven't traded it in. We played on PlayStation 4, and I'm not averse to trading things. I'll get rid of them as soon as I don't need them anymore. It's just clutter in the house. So I'm willing to give it a year to turn around. But it's got a lot of fucking work, and honestly, if Bioware can't turn it around, I can't see Bioware lasting as a studio, if I'm honest. Unless they are given one last chance. And at this point, I think it's partly Bioware's management. I don't know whether it's just a little bit all over the place, or whether they don't really know what they want to do as a company, or whether the problems stem from when they adopted Frostbite as their engine, because it feels like Frostbite just does not gel as an engine with their games. I mean, you've heard Mass Effect Andromeda had problems, Dragon Age Inquisition had issues. I mean, they had to develop things like, they had to put a third-person camera in this fucking engine because it didn't have one. They're developing kind of core tenets for this engine just to get their game functional. It feels like it's too much of a drag, because the Mass Effect trilogy and the old Dragon Age games, as far as I'm aware, never had this kind of jank or problem in how it runs. Mass Effect Andromeda did. I mean, for all the fuck-ups in Andromeda, which was another colossal disappointment, it killed Mass Effect. Oh god, and that's another thing, right? But Andromeda had its problems, but at least I could get through it. Yes, I had 5 Draxes. Jesus. I had 5 Draxes wandering around my ship at one time because they were just duplicating. Yes, I had a bug that if you were in the car and saved the game, that load file was corrupt. Yes, I had fucking things disappearing, missions glitching out, enemies disappearing and falling through walls, which, by the way, the disappearing of enemies does carry over in Anthem. But I could get through it without any major issues. The worst thing that happened to me on Andromeda was I lost 20 minutes of progress because of that car save bug. This, you just can't be arsed with it. You can't be arsed to wrestle. The game isn't so good that you want to wrestle with the technical issues. And yeah, the problem that I kind of hit on and deviated, shied away from before was Andromeda killed Mass Effect as a franchise, for the time being at least, and Anthem is what it died for. So Andromeda was shipped off to the B team that made a really poor game, and it's salt in the wound that the A team was making this arguably worse game. So honestly, if EA are willing to give Bioware the time and the backing that they need to turn this around, and Bioware can rise to the challenge, good. I'm giving them a year on a personal level. But if they can't, it makes you wonder if that announced untitled Dragon Age game will ever come out, and it makes you wonder if Bioware will survive. So, as I say, I've played enough that I could probably do a full-on long-play review for Anthem, but I didn't really want to, and I'll be honest, I've talked about it way longer on this Impressions video than I intended to, and it's basically just me ranting at this point. It honestly is. You know, it's a huge disappointment, and my impressions are bad, outwardly bad, and I don't recommend this game, and I would say stay away. And the only silver lining or the glimmer of hope or reasonable doubt I can give on this is I'll revisit in a year, and if it's still worth talking about, I might do another video to say what's changed or my impressions, or do a review then, and draft a few other friends in to help me articulate what's going on. But stay away from Anthem. It's not worth your time. The one thing that takes this thing out of this is I got it fairly cheap. Got it on launch for 30 quid. Which maybe should have been a warning sign in the first place, because it was going cheap across a lot of different retailers. And maybe the word on the street was that it wasn't going to sell much at full price. I don't know. I don't know if retailers get that kind of intel or act upon it or whatever, but take that as you will. But yeah, Anthem, stay the fuck away from it.